If you guys watched Monday's video, I'm about to eat my words a little bit. Monday's video was a full-on anti-haul rant about this new Urban Decay Naked Honey collection. Now granted, I did save myself a little bit and say that I was mildly interested in trying the new Urban Decay Naked Honey palette. And then the morning that it launched, I bought it. I feel like a lot of you guys listened to me talk about it in my anti-haul and then still let me know that no, Eshani, you need to buy that because you need to review it, and you know you kind of want to buy it anyways. And I kind of did. So yeah, I kind of did. Today we're going to be talking all about the brand new Urban Decay Naked Honey palette. I'm going to be doing my full review and swatches. I will compare it to a bunch of the previous Naked palettes for you guys and let you guys know if I think this is worth your time. Here's what the box of the Naked Honey palette looks like, and then this is the packaging of the actual palette. Can we just take a second to admire this? It's all like this vibrant yellow gold that's kind of been like burnished a little bit, and then like the lettering is all raised, and it's really pretty packaging. It opens up just like a typical Naked palette, and then inside you are getting a pretty large mirror and 12 eyeshadows. As you would expect, the color scheme that runs through this palette is very honey themed. It's very, very golden. If you guys like gold eyeshadow, you're gonna want to keep your ears perked up for this review. This palette retails for $49. I picked mine up inside Sephora, but I'm sure you can also get it on urbandecay.com. I think it's coming in a couple weeks to Ulta. I think Sephora got like a preview, like a pre-sale kind of thing for it. But at some point you should be able to find this palette everywhere that Urban Decay is available. Let's go ahead and chat color scheme of this palette, shall we? The color scheme here was something that when I first saw preview pictures, I was a little disappointed in. I talked about it in my anti-haul video, but to me, when I thought honey, I thought a lot more yellow. I thought a lot more vibrant. Even though I know technically honey isn't bright yellow or vibrant. I think ColourPop and the Honey palette that they released kind of skewed my opinion on what a honey palette is supposed to look like. But now that I have this in my hands and I've played with it a couple times, I get it. This color scheme is that golden, bright, burnished honey that I guess real honey kind of looks like. I mean, if you buy the honey that comes in the bare looking jar, you know what I'm talking about? It has a very earthy, yellowy, orangey hue to it. And a lot of these, especially these matte colors in here, definitely have that tone. In terms of textures, this is a really, really balanced Naked palette, which we haven't seen very often. There are 6 mattes and 6 shimmers in here. There are a few things I would change about this palette, and we'll go ahead and talk about that after I show you guys the palette swatches. Here are all 12 of the colors in the Urban Decay Naked Honey palette swatched on my arm. From left to right, we have Flyby, Sweet, Swarm, Amber, Keeper, Golden, Honey, Queen, Hive, Drip, HBIC, and Sting. HBIC, that confused me. But anyways, let's go ahead and chat textures. Like I said, there are 6 mattes that are in this palette, and the mattes are very, very, very smooth. They are what a lot of people would consider very powdery. In fact, when I picked it up with a fluffy brush and was blending some of these matte colors right here through my crease, there was almost like this smoke of powder that was just emitting from the area that I was blending, just because of how finely milled these powders are. That's gonna be an either love it or hate it thing. In terms of pigmentation, they're all very, very pigmented. They build, they blend very well. In terms of the Shimmery Shadows, there are 2 different, what I would consider finishes of Shimmer Shadow. This first shade right here, Flyby, is a completely unique texture in this palette. Flyby is what I would consider a really, really true satin finish eyeshadow. When you put it on the skin, there is very clearly some glow being emitted from this color, but it's definitely not foiled. I wouldn't even really consider it a true shimmer. It's genuinely a satin. It looks like satin on the eyes. It has that sheen that like a satin pillowcase or something would have. That's the effect it gives on your skin. If I were to tweak it a little bit, I would have maybe made it a little bit more golden in tone. I feel like it pulls just a little bit too white. I would have loved a little bit more yellow coming through that color, just because I think it would have played off of the rest of the palette even better. But besides that, the 5 shimmer shadows that you have in this palette are really, really pretty as well. They're definitely a denser foiled shadow. They have a lot of metallicness to them. You could probably tell that in the swatches, but they're not a creamy metallic, you know, something like a Natasha Denona, that when you even swatch them, you put your finger in them, they almost feel like a cream, even though they're a powder. It's the trippiest texture. This isn't quite like that. None of these are to the point of feeling like a cream shadow. They're still very much a powder, but they give a really, really beautiful foiled effect on the skin. So they are a really nice texture. One major disappointment, I will say, is the shade Honey, which is honestly the truest bright yellow, almost verging on green golden color in this palette. I mean, it is very, very bright. It's the namesake of this palette, and I hate to say that I'm a little disappointed in it, but I am. Only because if you are very familiar with the Urban Decay eyeshadow line, Urban Decay used to have a texture of shadow called their Deluxe Shadows. Back in the day, they had these very beautiful, very foiled shadows, and they had a shade called Honey. And it was the most beautiful, burnt yellow with almost a slight duochrome of like this copper. It wasn't like a true duochrome, not like something we would see now. I mean, this shadow probably came out over a decade ago, so it's not the kind of effect you would see now, but it was really, really pretty. I mean, that was a gorgeous, gorgeous eyeshadow. And for Urban Decay to literally come out with a Naked Honey palette and have a shadow in it called Honey, and for it to not be the same as their original and very, very much beloved Honey Deluxe eyeshadow, it almost feels like a stab in the gut. This Honey is beautiful in its own right, but it ain't the original. And you would think that Urban Decay would want to do homage to that. Homage? Was that the right word? I don't know. Not to take anything away from this new Honey. It's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it ain't no Honey Deluxe shadow from a decade ago. The other thing about this palette that I would slightly tweak if I could are a few of these matte shadows. Nothing wrong with the texture of them. However, these 2 mattes right here and these 2 mattes right here, they look so similar to each other. I would have loved to see, you know, just one of these 2 and one of these 2 and had a couple of other colors put in instead. For example, if Urban Decay took out one of these browns right here and replaced it with a really, really true matte mustard brownish yellow, I mean, similar to Keeper, but even darker, like a darker, richer matte mustard, I think that would have been stunning. And if they took out one of these 2 and maybe put in like a bright matte yellow, just a true sunshine canary yellow, yeah, maybe it would have stuck out a lot amongst the rest of these kind of earthy tones, but I think it would have added a little variety, a little diversity to the palette. And on some degree, I understand this is a great palette, especially for a beginner, because you're getting, you know, a lot of different eyeshadows, but because they are all so much in the same color family, the blending from one of these mattes to the next is going to be pretty much effortless. The shades aren't that much deeper, like you're not making major jumps trying to blend this color straight up into, you know, a super dark brown. You have everything in between to get your gradient. But for someone who doesn't like seeing wasted space in a palette, especially, I mean, you have 12 colors, and if 2 of the colors in here look like 2 other colors, I just feel like those are 2 wasted shades. Like they could have put in something else for us to play with. So yeah, that would be my only big critique about this palette. That and Honey. I mean, why did we change that? Urban Decay, I want answers. I want answers from you. Why is that different? But other than that, I mean, if you're looking for a good gold eyeshadow palette, one that has basically every shade of gold and a nice bronze and a nice rose gold and all the mattes that would perfectly correspond with those shades, you want just your all-inclusive gold palette, this is it. This is a really pretty one. The palette also comes with a double-ended brush. One side is kind of this short, fat kind of shader brush. And then the other side is one of those that almost looks like the MAC 217. It's kind of a pinched, fluffy crease brush. Okay, now let's go ahead and jump into doing some side-by-side comparisons next to a bunch of the previous Naked palettes. There have been so many of these that have come out, so I'm just gonna show you side-by-side comparisons next to ones that are in similar-ish color families. I'm not gonna show you Naked Cherry or the Naked Smoky, which has been discontinued anyways, but I will show you it next to the very, very OG Naked palette, which isn't available anymore, but I know a lot of us already have this in our collection. So here we have a look at those two next to each other. On the top, we have the Naked Honey, and on the bottom, we have the original Naked palette. Next up, let's go ahead and do a side-by-side next to the Naked 2 palette. So here we have those two next to each other. On the top, we have Naked Honey. On the bottom, we have the Naked 2. Moving right along, Naked 3. So here are those two. On the top, we have Naked Honey. On the bottom, we have Naked 3. We'll go ahead and do a side-by-side next to the Naked Heat palette. So here's a look at those two next to each other. On the top, we have Naked Honey. On the bottom, we have Naked Heat. And then finally, a side-by-side next to the Naked Reloaded palette, which this was the palette that replaced the original Naked. And here you have a look at those two. On the top, we have Naked Honey. On the bottom, we have Naked Reloaded. And then wrapping this video up, let's go ahead and do some housekeeping things. This palette, it says the bulk was made in the USA with US and or imported ingredients, and it was assembled in the Dominican Republic. You are getting the least amount of product in here that you're getting in any of the other Naked palettes. Each of these pans holds 0.95 grams of product. Multiplying that by 12 shadows means you're getting 11.4 grams of product total. That means that you're paying $4.30 per gram for the shadows in this palette. In comparison, the original Naked palette, you were paying about $3.14 per gram. In this palette, you're paying $4.30 per gram. This palette is basically competing with Anastasia Beverly Hills price per gram, which honestly is on the higher end side for a high-end palette. So yeah, not great value for money, but the price per gram really only comes into play if you're planning on using up the shadows in this palette. But if you're someone like me who has Naked 1, Naked 2, Naked 3, Naked Reloaded, Naked Heat, and honestly, we'll never use up this palette. It doesn't play the biggest part. But anyways, that wraps up my review video on the new Urban Decay Naked Honey palette. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what your thoughts about this palette are in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for your support on my channel. I appreciate it more than you will ever know. Be sure to thumbs up the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in my next video very soon. I'll see you then. Bye!